Your mind was trained to analyze, question, and protect you. But what if that training is quietly blocking your connection to God? Stay with me, because the very thing you think disqualifies you might actually be the door. In the last video, we explored why people who think deeply often wrestle with faith differently than others. We talked about how analytical minds are wired, why they struggle with trust, and how this isn't a spiritual failure but a developmental stage. In this video, we will talk about what this means practically and how deep thinkers can find their way toward authentic faith. Let me address something that might be bothering you. You might be thinking, but doesn't the Bible encourage us to test everything, to examine the scriptures, to be discerning? Absolutely. 1 Thessalonians says to test all things and hold fast to what is good. The Bereans were commended for examining scripture to verify Paul's teaching. Jesus himself engaged in detailed theological debate. So intellectual rigor is not opposed to faith. The question is what you're using your intellect for. Are you using your analytical ability to seek God or to avoid God? Are you using questions as a genuine search for truth or as a way to maintain control? Are you thinking deeply in order to know God better or to keep God at arm's length until you figured him out completely? Because here's what happens. Some people use intellectual questioning as a shield. As long as they're analyzing, debating, researching, they don't have to actually surrender. As long as there are unresolved questions, they have a reason to delay trust. The thinking becomes not a path toward God, but a detour around the vulnerability that true faith requires. I'm not saying this is you, but it's worth asking because sometimes what feels like intellectual integrity is actually emotional self protection. Your mind is doing what it's always done, trying to maintain safety through understanding, trying to avoid the risk of trusting something you can't control. And God is gently, persistently inviting you to a different kind of safety. The safety that comes not from having everything figured out, but from being held by someone who has everything figured out. Here's the beautiful paradox. The very mind that makes faith feel harder for you is also capable of a richer, deeper, more textured faith than simpler approaches allow. Because when you finally learn to trust God amid unresolved questions, you're demonstrating the kind of faith that God finds particularly precious. When you choose to believe despite intellectual difficulties, when you worship even while wrestling with doubt, when you obey even while not fully understanding, you're living out a mature faith that honors both your God given intellect and God's ultimate authority. Think about it this way. A child's trust is beautiful and innocent, but it hasn't been tested. An adult's trust, forged through difficulty and doubt and deliberate choice, that trust has substance, it has weight. Jesus didn't condemn Thomas for doubting, but he did say, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Why? Because believing without physical proof requires trust that goes deeper than empirical verification. It requires relationship. So, what does the path forward look like? First, you have to stop seeing your analytical mind as the enemy of faith. God gave you that mind. He designed you to think deeply, to question thoroughly, to seek understanding. That's not a bug, it's a feature. The issue isn't that you think, it's what you're asking thinking to accomplish. Thinking can help you know God. It cannot replace knowing God. Second, you need to recognize where your need for certainty comes from. For many deep thinkers, the compulsion to figure everything out is rooted in old wounds. Maybe you grew up in chaos and learned that understanding meant survival. Maybe you were hurt by authority figures and now you struggle to trust anyone, including God. Maybe you've been intellectually shamed and now you overcompensate by trying to have every answer. Understanding these roots doesn't make the struggle disappear, but it helps you see that your difficulty with faith isn't primarily intellectual. It's often emotional and relational. Third, you need to practice trust in small ways. Not reckless trust, not blind trust, but deliberate trust. Choose to trust God with one specific thing without demanding to understand the full picture first. Choose to obey one clear command, even if you don't fully grasp the reasoning behind it. Choose to rest for 1 hour without analyzing your spiritual state. These small acts of trust are like exercises that strengthen a muscle you've neglected because your mind has been doing all the heavy lifting. Fourth, find community with other deep thinkers who are also people of faith. You need relationships with people who won't give you pat answers, but who also won't enable endless questioning that never moves toward trust. You need friends who can wrestle with hard questions alongside you while also calling you toward deeper dependence on God. You need to see examples of people who think deeply and believe deeply, whose intellectual rigor serves their faith rather than undermining it. Fifth, spend time with God in ways that engage more than just your intellect. Pray, but don't just think about prayer. Worship, even if analyzing the experience is your first instinct. Serve, and notice how love grows through action, even when theology remains partially mysterious. Fast and discover what happens when you choose dependence on God over your own ability to manage life. These spiritual practices aren't anti intellectual, they're trans intellectual. They engage your whole self, including but not limited to your mind. Next week, we will continue this journey with the final transformative steps. If this resonated with you, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone else who might need to hear that their analytical mind isn't a barrier to faith. It might just be the path to a deeper, richer, more honest relationship with God than they ever imagined possible. Thank you for watching.